Flight determines many features about birds. Thanks to their ability to fly, birds are some of the animal world's most amazing travelers. At certain times of the year, some birds migrate between fixed points. These are the so-called migrant birds. One migration pattern is to chase the summer. When summer comes to the northern hemisphere, these birds fly north to nest. And when summer ends, they fly back to the southern hemisphere to chase the summer there. In late spring and early summer, many migrant birds set off in large numbers to fly to their next staging post. Taiwan is a major staging post on bird migration routes. At this time, group after group of migrant birds bid us farewell and fly north, including shorebirds like sandpipers and plovers. During their season in Taiwan, these winter migrants gather energy. They change their winter plumage for the bright summer plumage they will need for mating, and prepare to fly back north to breed their next generation. Meanwhile, many summer migrants are arriving in Taiwan, their chosen breeding ground. One of the largest groups of Taiwan summer migrants, and one with quite special habits, are the terns. Like seagulls, the terns are classified taxonomically as belonging to the Laridae family. Resembling swallows in appearance and flight profile, their Chinese name simply means swallow gulls. They are to be found all over the world. Most terns spend a large part of their life at sea, but in the breeding season, they must return to dry land to nest and bring up their young. To them, this is the significance of land. But not every type of land meets their needs. Generally speaking, terns prefer to choose uninhabited islands or quiet sandy areas as their nesting site. They eat a diet of fish, so they need to be close to water. They also hate to be disturbed, so they must avoid other animals, especially man. One of the terns' most striking features is their habit of communal breeding. When on land, they live clustered together. At the slightest commotion nearby, the whole flock takes off at once, making a magnificent sight. In Taiwan, terns are mainly found on certain uninhabited islands in the Penghu archipelago and on a few Taiwan River estuaries north of the Tropic of Cancer. Southwest of Penghu are two volcanic islands which look like crouching cats. They are known as Big and Little Cat Islands, or Maoyu in Chinese. Both these islands consist of steep basalt rocks. Not an inch of grass grows on this rocky terrain except at the summits. So Maoyu is almost bare of cover and extremely hot in summer. While totally unsuitable for human habitation, Maoyu is, however, a paradise for birds and has long been a breeding ground for the bridled tern and the common noddy. Every April, bridled terns settle on the grassy summits of Maoyu. At about the same time, the distinctive common noddy also arrives on Maoyu, where it nests on small ledges on the columnar basalt cliffs. Most terns have basically white plumage, but the common noddy's plumage is brown. It has distinctive white eyebrows and a grayish-white cap. Each of these species of tern occupies its own territory on Maoyu and breeds its young without disturbing the other. The bridal tern often chooses to nest in grassy places close to rocks. The nests are closely spaced, which occasionally gives rise to fights over territory. The bridal tern's main feature is the white stripe on both sides of its head, like an eyebrow. The common noddy usually nests on steep cliffs. The nests are high density with very little room between them, vertically or horizontally. Once a male and female have paired off, they share the task of fetching grass for the nest. Once the nest is built, and soon after mating, the female bird normally lays a single white egg. The male and female then take turns sitting on it. Like most terns, the little tern has a long, hard, sharply pointed bill, which is well adapted for catching small, slippery fish. The little tern prefers to nest on flat ground, whether muddy or stony, and lays from 1 to 3 eggs at a time. One way of identifying the little tern is by the striking white triangle at the front of its black cap. In its summer plumage, the whole bill is yellow, apart from a small black area at the tip, and its feet are red. In its winter plumage, the bill and feet turn dark brown. When it settles, you can clearly see how its tail feathers fork like a pair of scissors. This is one reason why the Chinese associate terns with swallows. There are 64 small islands in the Penghu archipelago. This is another uninhabited island, which is the nesting place for 3 more species of terns. It is a low, flat mesa island, almost entirely overgrown by green-bristled grass, with small amounts of convolvulus. In summer, this grassland is a paradise for the roseate tern. The roseate tern has bright red legs, so the people of Penghu call it Little Red Legs. Rocks emerging from the grass make ideal lookout points for the roseate tern. Dense white guano on the rocks shows that roseate terns regularly mount guard here. A few black-naped terns perch on the steep coastal cliff that rears up on one side of the island. Apart from a black eye stripe that extends to the nape of its neck, the black-naped tern's plumage is white all over. Once the roseate tern reaches its nesting ground, it lives a communal life. When it gathers in its wings, the roseate tern's entire back looks like a gentle pale gray. The male bird performs a courtship ritual for the female. In the breeding season, the white plumage on the breasts of both the male and the female changes to a pale rosy pink, hence the name roseate tern. Once his partner is found, the male bird droops both wings and performs a courtship ritual for the female bird. We do not understand the tern's courtship ritual, but its movements look like a series of dance steps. The male bird carefully brings a fish to feed the female. This is called courtship feeding. At a certain stage of the courtship act, the male bird stands on the female's back, usually the prelude to mating. At this moment, the male and female roseate tern can for once be clearly distinguished. During mating, the male's tail presses downwards. The female lowers her breast slightly, lifts her tail, and frequently twists round to look at the male bird. After mating, roseate terns begin to live monogamously as husband and wife. They share the task of finding a suitable spot for their nest, normally a grassy place. Tufts of green bristle grass sprouting widely on the island provide them with some cover from the hot sunshine. If the mating has been successful, the roseate tern will lay 1 or 2 eggs. Terns usually build their nests close together. The roseate terns on this island sometimes nest only 2 meters apart. But within these narrow bounds, each pair jealously guards its own territory. When the eggs arrive, both male and female take turns incubating them. Normally, one bird sits while the other mounts guard nearby. Nevertheless, the female bird does most of the sitting. The parent birds turn the eggs over with their beak, or sometimes their belly, to keep them at an even temperature. In hot weather, since most terns' nests are almost devoid of cover, parent birds are often to be seen during the incubating season panting with open mouths to dissipate heat. Spreading their wings to shade their eggs, or even diligently going back and forth to dip their belly feathers in water to lower the egg's temperature. It's hard work for them. On hot days, when the temperature climbs to 36 or 37 degrees Celsius, roseate terns frequently cool their eggs with water, repeating the action every 10 minutes or so. The eggs of roseate terns, black nape terns, and little terns are well camouflaged with brown spots or speckles on a pale background. Little terns normally nest on stony ground in a spot slightly sheltered from the wind. They sometimes pick up stones in their bill and arrange them beside the nest. This pebble shows just how perfectly the little tern's egg is modeled on nature. The common noddy, different in appearance from other terns, also lays a quite distinctive egg. Totally without speckles, the egg is a striking white color. This may be due to the relative safety of the cliffs where the common noddy nests, as well as the absence of natural predators on the island, apart from the unexpected human beings, that is. At one time, Maui was used for Air Force bombing exercises. It isn't anymore, but the nearby sound of shelling still makes for a certain degree of disturbance. Tourists are another source of threat to the terns on Penghu's islands. These 32 partially incubated roseate terns' eggs have been picked up by tourists coming to the island and casually left here. After an incubation period of 3 weeks or so, the hatchling breaks the shell and emerges, still with a white egg tooth at the tip of its beak. At this point, the parent bird immediately carries the eggshell away and disposes of it elsewhere, thus minimizing the danger of the hatchling being discovered. Parent birds feed the hatchling with fish straight away and cover it over with their outspread wings. Wet and helpless, the newly hatched baby bird waits to be fed. Both its parents must work in rotation to keep it constantly fed and cared for. As a semi-precocial maturing bird, young terns can run around freely 2 or 3 days after birth. When the parent bird brings back a fish, the fledgling runs up to eat it. Like the eggs, the fledglings are well camouflaged too. Most have brown plumage with dark brown spots. When the parent birds are away, they seek their own cover to hide in and are very hard to find. Fledglings of the roseate tern hide among tufts of green bristled grass. while those of the black-naped tern hide in crevices in the rocks where they are safe from the sun, the wind, and predators. When the parent bird comes back, they run out and make a calling sound to help the parent find them. Not all the fledglings are reared by their own parents. In the world of the tern, fostering happens from time to time. Here is a group of roseate tern parents searching for their own young, busily going to and fro, and apparently quarreling over finding their places. Ever the exception, the common noddy's eggs and fledglings are not camouflaged like those of other terns, but are very striking. The fledgling is white all over, in contrast to the parent bird's dark plumage. The common noddy also has a special way of feeding its young. The parent bird eats the fish itself, then regurgitates it for the fledgling to feed upon from its open mouth. Instead of directly feeding the fledgling with fish like other terns. The anchovy is what the tern most often feeds its young. It is also the mainstay of the adult bird's diet. During the tern's breeding season, this little silvery fish conveniently appears in large numbers in the seas near the tern's nesting grounds. But the tasty anchovy is not only the tern's staple food, it is also a delicacy for man. The human season for catching anchovy coincides with the tern's breeding season. So the sight of large clusters of terns out at sea is often a sign for fishermen catching anchovy. According to Penghu fishermen's reports and research studies, the numbers of anchovy have been declining year by year, with particularly severe drops in 1992 and 1993. Are the terns who live on anchovy correspondingly shrinking in numbers? More research is needed before a conclusive answer can be reached. Three or 4 weeks after hatching, the furry roseate tern fledglings have become semi-mature birds with a new plumage of patchy grayish whites. Even though the semi-mature birds can fly, they still need to be fed and cared for by the parent birds. The family group's importance only lessens once the young birds are completely independent. The plumage of the semi-mature common noddy grows darker and darker, more and more like the adult bird. It desperately flaps its wings, attempting to fly. This is a supremely important lesson to learn, because soon it must rely on flight for the first migration of its life. Once the semi-adult bird has learned to fly, it quickly learns to catch fish and evade predators. Both these skills must be mastered before it can be independent. And once independent, it will be another 2 or 3 years before it can mate. By late September, most of the terns have disappeared. They have moved on elsewhere to continue their life's journey. This is the time when the winter migrants arrive in Taiwan. Life seems to have completed another cycle. But with shrinking stocks of anchovy, disturbance from tourists, and Air Force bombing runs, when next year's breeding season arrives, will the terns choose Taiwan as their nesting ground once more? This is not just the terns' problem. It's ours to solve, too.